Avatar: The Way of Water has just crossed the $2 billion mark right on schedule. So, what's the deal with this movie? Is it good? Is it crap? Does it deserve $2 billion or does it deserve much less or 2 billion more? I am Captain Garrett. This is Swords and Starships Channel. And I fully confess to loving Avatar. I really do. I loved the first one. I swear to God, I was one of those people with the Pandora depression. I would never admit it at the time, but I was looking up articles on how to get over it. So, yeah, this is my confession. I admit it. I wanted to live on Pandora. I didn't want to leave. I wanted to be a blue person for a while. I'm not proud of it. So I enjoyed the first film, and that brings me to the second film. I enjoyed the second film, and I think part of the problem that we have is almost without fail, every single new movie that comes out is such a subversion of every classic storytelling uh, fundamental, really, that we are left with these very hollow, miserable, unfulfilling tales, which if Captain America were being introduced today, they could never make that character because he was too heroic and he was too American and he was too old fashioned. And so here comes Avatar, in which a father is protecting his family. But more importantly, what's really beautiful about the story is really the fact that both Jake and Neytiri have a partnership, like a real marriage. His children do not lecture him about what is right. Generally, I'm tired of this trope of the really snarky and intelligent child who is lecturing the parent on the homework that they've already got done and all the things the parent has forgotten to do. It's like, oh, did you do your homework? Oh, I already did my homework. You know that. This role reversal between parent and child is frankly annoying and tiresome. So it was quite refreshing to see Jake Sully and Neytiri running their family like parents and, you know, giving orders and expecting the children to obey them. And also, it was fun to watch the kids be sort of like actual kids. Most of the time, they try to do good. Occasionally, they're rebellious. And other times, they do dumb things that almost get them killed. It is disappointing to me that James Cameron spent 13 years working on this project and was not able to deliver a little more nuanced and a little tighter script. And what really lets me down is a little known fact about the first film. Do you wonder why they were after the unobtainium in the first movie? According to notes in the script, Earth is essentially on its last legs. The economy is collapsing. The planet is sort of dying. And one of the only energy sources that is actually giving Earth hope of turning things around, saving the environment potentially, and saving humanity is unobtainium, an extremely rare energy source. And the only place you can find it is Pandora. Wouldn't that have added a little dramatic weight to both sides? Quaritch, Colonel Quaritch, who is the villain in the first film and this one, and an excellent character who I love, nevertheless, suffers from a problem of one-dimensionality that is quite disappointing. There are moments when he really shines as a character. He is a tough but fair military man who cares about his troops, and he leads by example. Excellent qualities. On the other hand, he never misses an opportunity to be as mustache-twirling ruthless as possible. The best example I can think of, I was watching it again recently in preparation of seeing the second film, and when they are basically nuking the tree and they're firing all the missiles, the Na'vi decide to fight back and they fire spears and arrows up at, with no effect. Futilely, they fire them at the fleet of aircraft that are attacking their home, and Quaritch is immediately responds with an attitude of, how dare they nuke them some more, and the reality is, I think a man of Quaritch's experience and his ethic would have felt at least a tinge of respect for an enemy that was standing and fighting, regardless of how hopeless the odds. And I think, being the keen tactician that the film shows him to be, he would also have recognized that what they were doing wasn't a threat. Wouldn't it have been just a little more interesting and a bit humanizing if he had instead said, I admire their spirit defending their home. Hit them with another round of gas, sparing their lives out of a certain respect. I think he still would have been a ruthless SOB that had to go. But he would have been a more interesting ruthless SOB, in my opinion. I think to have a good villain, there must always be a little bit of light in them. There must always be a little bit of humanity. That is not to excuse them from their crimes, obviously. Really, it's just to acknowledge the complexity of humanity. And honestly, it's just more interesting. It's just more interesting when there's layers to a character. Great drama is when two people are arguing and both are right. In the world of Avatar, there are two people arguing, and one of them is unfailingly morally praiseworthy, and the other is unfailingly evil, ruthless, and completely without pity. And I find that very boring and very disappointing. And I'm very disappointed that that same mentality carried over into the second film. So as I mentioned, having the context that unobtainium was literally the lifeblood potentially saving the human species would have added more complexity right there to the story. It would have made Jake's choice more complicated. It would have made Jake's choice more costly. So that brings us to the second film. In the second film, we are hunting the whales, which is such an oddly old-fashioned environmental trope. My knee-jerk reaction is the same as anyone else's. Really? Saving the whales? That's like so 1995. They're essentially hunting the whales in order to extract the neural tissue, which stops human aging. It is the absolute ghoulish delight with which the humans extract this material, knowing, oh, this is the worst part too. So one of the scientists basically says as they're extracting it, oh yeah, and right there is the part of their brain that has language and music and the arts. It turns out there's more neural connections in the human brain. Oh yes, they're quite brilliant creatures, smarter than we are. They are just so unfeeling to a fault, every human being in this entire story. And it's really depressing. It's depressing because it allows, not because it, I think that if you allow yourself to take the story at face value, you walk out of the theater thinking, wow, we're real pieces of shit. And it's like, how come none of the Na'vi are pieces of shit? Because quite frankly, I rather doubt that any tribal people living in a state of harmony with nature would, to an absolute person, be virtuous and above all reproach. Come on. I simply don't enjoy a story that portrays without any nuance whatsoever these humans that just, they're completely morally reprehensible, but for almost no reason. And I think that's what bothers me about it. At least in the case of the unobtainium, if you establish that the unobtainium is going to save humanity, suddenly torching a giant tree, as morally horrendous as it is, you could still believe that the character, even knowing it's morally horrendous, is desperate to do it anyway, because it's either that or everyone, my family on Earth, dies. Okay? Wouldn't that just make for a more interesting story? So that's my attitude about it. Those are my thoughts, more or less, on Avatar. Why is this movie so well liked? Well, on the one hand, people say it's very pretty, it's like an amusement ride, and all of that's true. But it isn't just that. Because there's plenty of films that are like amusement rides. It's the immersion. It's the immersion in the world. And the reason the world is so immersive is because it's so fully fleshed out and realized. It is so detailed. It's almost as if what Cameron lacks as a storyteller on the character level, he puts all of that character work into the planet and its sort of ecosystem. And that is, in and of itself, thought-provoking, because even though there might not be super complex moral conundrums in the story, your imagination is free to run wild on Pandora. And I tend to think that people that don't like Avatar tend to be more logical and analytical. And I think that people who tend to like Avatar, like myself, enjoy enjoy having their heartstrings tugged a little bit. It is the fact you can just escape Earth, your reality, for a while. And it's fun. You're going to a fun, cool place that is, and hands down, one of the most gorgeous films I've ever seen. I feel that Avatar 2, if it had come out 2 or 3 years after the first one, would have been a pretty dang worthy sequel. Having come out 13 years after the first one, it is a huge disappointment to me how unrefined the story is. Why is Earth dying? What is being done about it? What is it like on Earth? There is no moral complexity to this story at all, and it really, really is a missed opportunity. And this from a director who has given us Terminator, which is one of the great meditations on human self-destructiveness and the danger of nuclear proliferation and the threat of AI run amok. You know, he gives us these thought-provoking stories in his younger days, and now he seems to dump everything into the character of Pandora, but he doesn't spare enough effort for his actual characters. And that is disappointing to me. But whether you love Avatar or you hate Avatar, you are correct, Sir Madamarit. This is Swords and Starships. I do thank you for listening to my thoughts on Avatar 2. Please do like and subscribe. If you're on YouTube, pop over to Rumble if you would and give it a like. If you're on Rumble, pop over and give it a like on YouTube. And this is Captain Garrett saying, I will see you out there. Make sure to check out my novel series, Blood and Oak. It's available now on Amazon. It follows the sword and sails adventures of Midshipman John Sullivan. When his sister is kidnapped and sold into slavery by the Barbary pirates, this daring young Navy officer embarks on a suicidal quest for rescue and revenge. It's available now on Amazon in Kindle, paperback, and a fantastic audiobook narrated by Travis Baldree. I'm not just giving commentary and commenting on the problems in entertainment. I'm doing my best to be part of the solution, and I would be truly honored to earn your readership and your support. Until then, I say hail to you, hail to the fellowship, and hail to the Iron Age of entertainment.